Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Josh with Suited Up to the Nines channel, and let's pick up where we left off. Last video, I just dynoed the Maggie on E40 034 Stage 2 Plus file, made just shy of 560 all-wheel horsepower, and there's some things I wanted to address after looking at the logs. There was changes I made through the rest of the racing season last summer, and so I want to make this video to show what I did on that, to then in the future make a video with the Stage 3 file and actually explore the true potential of the Maggie. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get going, I wanted to hear what you think about my new intro. I'm pretty pleased with it. My friend Andrew Wright with Right of Way Photography helped me film it, and drop a comment. I want to know what you think. So after the dyno, I started making the changes. First one is the intake, and I'll show you the videos from that. Hey, so we're in the garage and we're gonna do some of the upgrades that I talked about in the last video. Intake. The restriction up there. I got a new silicone coupling. Change the meth nozzle. And we're gonna do the pulley. So we got the two filters. This is the original one. This is the new one. The thing about this is, yes, it's bigger. That's not the only thing about it. We've got the openings are bigger. This is 4-inch, straight into for 4-inch intake. This is a 6-inch opening. I'll show you why. Alright, so now we've got the Venturi on. Everything's tightened down, the clamps are on. So that is, the idea being that is going to help funnel air, being a velocity stack, as it kind of smooths it out as it goes through the filter into that next transition into the intake pipe. So that's the goal. Okay, so we got her. We got the new AFE filter. We've got the Venturi, or sorry, not the Venturi, the second time. We've got the velocity stack on, the coupler, changed out the number 4 to the number 2. And we got nice smoother transition. The last one that I had, that I've replaced here, it just went in like that. And that was more of the issue. This one actually directs the air and has a transition, actually straightens off before going into the throttle body. All the air last time was coming up the pipe and like trying to hit the throttle body like that and then having to straighten out. Not ideal. So this I'm hoping, and we'll see what the results, if this does better. Hopefully all together. I mean, if I'm honest, I'm a little, my eyebrows are hitting the roof looking at that filter size compared to the last one. All right, so for intake changing results. So this is a log in how to tell if your intake, if it's modified, if you changed it, if it's a stock one, if you made tweaks to your aftermarket one, even if you change the filter, let's say. It's nice to know if the intake is doing a better job or not. And doing a better job by letting that air breathe more easily into the supercharger, into the engine. So this DataZap log screenshot is from the dyno. Then this next one on the bottom is after I modified the intake further. So when you select the amp, it's atmospheric measured and pressure delta or pressure differential measured is what these AMP MES and PDT MES. So I'll call them AMP and PDT for short. So atmospheric is the pressure outside of the car, the normal breathing that you would have, whatever altitude you're at. And PDT is the pressure reading that's inside the mouth of the supercharger after the throttle body. It's at that little T-map sensor on the very back of the blower. And so being T-map, it'll read temperature and pressure. And so when you look at them, you have to compare the deltas. And so as your RPMs get to the red line, that's going to be when the delta is the highest. So that's the point you pick. That's the best indicator. So before I made the changes, the delta on the top graph is 107 HPA. So not great. I like them well below 100. Anything more than that is unacceptable for me. So then the bottom, after I made the changes with that coupler, with the filter, with the velocity stack, I dropped it down to 68 HPA. So it's breathing way better now. I was really happy with that. So I've made the changes to my intake. I'm in race trim here. I've got half my exhaust removed. I've got my Hoosier DR2s on, my interior out, and I still haven't changed the pulley. I'm still on the 70 mil upper pulley, and I've changed the meth nozzle to the 60 mil. And let's go see what I can do on track now. Oh man, not what I was looking to do. Bogged down on the launch, definitely messed that up. So that paid the penalty there as far as doing an 11-second pass. But I was looking at the mile per hour and it's knocking on the door of 127, so that was showing good things. That was what I wanted to see. So I'm making the power. Now I just gotta get my launch right. Holy did I get treed there, but I was super happy with that launch. 159, 60 foot, there we go. 10.83, 120, almost 7 mile an hour, and 2,600 foot DA. Not too bad. Final round of the night, did a 157, 60 foot, pretty happy with that. But things were warming up. IATs were a bit hotter as I pretty much hot lapped this one 7 minutes in between the runs, but it was good. And 2 back-to-back 10-8 runs, so it gave me something to work with and improve on from there. So when I go to the track, I have to follow rules to be able to be teched in following the Summit Series racebook. So my car isn't allowed to have a Kirky unless I have a roll cage of some sort. I'm not sure the full extent of how complicated the roll cage has to be. So I don't really want a roll cage at this point in my car, being that it's the daily, so there's no Kirky at the track. And so I went out after with the Kirky in. The DA had dropped from 3,000 to 2,000. And so this was on street tires first. Okay, so after that run, that was good, but good mile per hour. But I could see in my launch I had a lot more left on the table there. So I switched over to my Hoosier DR2s, went out again, and this is what I did. So 10.69, 10.70, so I was pretty happy with that. Like that's the fastest I've ever been now. That was a new personal best, and this is July. So I'm thinking, man, I've got still a bunch of the season left, and I'm still just scratching the surface here. There's a lot more I can do to help the Maggie reach its full potential. And at this point, I was still on the 70 mil upper pulley. I was on the Stage 2 Plus E40 file from 034. And so there's a few more things to try then. I could go down to the 66 mil pulley. Yeah, the bypass valve is still opening, limiting boost. So the other thing that I started looking at was my IATs. Normally they've been pretty good. I haven't been that worried about them. We did an Audi Club Western Canada track day at the Rocky Mountain Motorsports, and I pulleyed down. After the dyno, I switched up from the 70 to the 66 mil pulley. I didn't show that in the video, sorry, but I did. For the track day, I'm like, okay, it's probably gonna spin the blower too hard. I switched down to the 70 mil then, and had done those last two runs there with that 70 on. So I'm like, okay, I can go back up to the 66. With that 66, I started seeing a bit more IATs climbing and a little bit harder to control. And even as a base, my ambient temperature would be, let's say, 20 degrees out, summertime up in here. My intake air temps, after everything's warmed up, would be a solid 20 degrees Celsius above that. So not ideal. And was there a way to bring that down? Yeah, but if you have lower ITs, you get the advantage in the maps of higher timing advance. So then now I was looking at going divorced, which I hadn't really considered before. Now, if you go back, you remember my Tech Talk video that I'd done about a divorced system. I'd considered it then, but I hadn't really seen a need for it. I'd been able to do 10s, a 10.90 at 126 mile an hour, 3,300 foot DA, nothing other than a CWA 100 and a Merc Racing heat exchanger and the B8.5 piping change for the C7A6. But now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, in that video, if you go back, you'll remember me saying that a 50-50 mix of coolant and antifreeze compared to 100% distilled, say with water, whatever, that 50-50 mix is 86% as efficient. So, I mean, that's pretty high in my mind, was before anyways. Now, I'm looking at that like, that's 14% I'm leaving on the table. I gotta take advantage of that. And so, what was nice is, and here's mine, I pulled it off for the winter, but I'll be putting it back in here. It's got a OEM style cap, and it's got a pressure relief valve in here. And that was key for me. So going back to that video, the Tech Talk video about divorce systems, I had specified a couple things that if I were to do it, the reservoir should be like an OEM style one where you'd be able to splice in the electrical harness, so you'd still have a warning on your dash. Say if the divorce reservoir ran low, there's a leak in your system somewhere, you were able to get notified about it, stop, get it fixed, potentially before any damage was done, or a limp mode. Say if you're on a long road trip, that may be unfavorable. So, but anyways, that's a risk that I was willing to take on with this Magnuson reservoir. It doesn't have that, but I was still comfortable with it, and that's just my personal risk tolerance. So that was one thing. The other thing that was, I think, more important though, was that using an OEM style, it would have a pressure relief valve in the cap. So any excess pressure would be vented off, usually air pressure as the system's bleeding itself, and that air can be released. As the pump's circulating and pressures increase through the system and air is bled, it gets vented off, and that's really ideal. And so that's what I liked about this option. You can see the port where it vented off. This cap vents off at 110 kPa or 16 psi, and yeah, it worked really well last year. So I actually, in testing that, I wanted to make sure that this was a modification that actually worked, that there was benefit to doing it. And so I tested before I got going, I tested the temp rating of my coolant. With one of these things. So you stick it in your reservoir, use the vacuum, sucks up the coolant, and it gives you a little needle indication of where and what temperature rating your coolant is good for. Being up in Canada, when we see minus 40, minus 50, guaranteed now these winters for like a week at minimum, we want a good coolant rating in our systems, or sorry, a temperature rating in our coolant. So mine was actually, when I tested it, it was minus 51 degrees Celsius. So yeah, it's doing its job. It didn't need to be that high, but it was. So there was more coolant in there than there was distilled for sure. So I drained some of the system out, filled it up more with distilled water, and got about a minus, so it dropped it down to about a minus 35, minus 37 degree rating, which is a nice improvement, but far from running full distilled water and water wetter. So naturally, the next thing to do was to divorce my system after the reservoir showed up, and I filmed that install, and I'll show you that right now. So that's my CWA 100 pump there. And this reservoir is essentially just going to go, I've got built a bracket that's going to sit right here, more or less. Okay, so get a better idea of what we're doing here. Coolant reservoir. Underneath, behind it, right there. Try not to lose my 8 mil. It's not a 10 mil, so it shouldn't come off. That then feeds this hard line. Now we follow that hard line down. And we see it tee off there. Let me get it to focus. Okay, so there, what you're seeing that goes up to the top of your screen is where it tees off to go to the supercharger loop, and further down keeps going to the engine loop. Okay, so we see that it goes underneath the frame rail. And this is where it shows up. And then this goes into the suction of the pump. Yeah, focus again. So that goes into the section of the pump, and this black fitting is that T. Just like this. And it's oriented like this. So that bottom line that and this is what we're seeing right now, and you can't see that this bottom line. That's where the heat exchanger ties into, the outlet of the heat exchanger ties into that there, and that's part of the suction of the pump. Okay, so where that rubber or the coolant hose comes underneath the frame rail and ties into that T-fitting on the left there, here, that's what's getting capped. I'm going to put a plug in there, and then I'm going to take that T, or use this one, and orient it like this. So the heat exchanger is still at the bottom, the pump suction is still going to be there, and then the new reservoir is going to tie into this part. It's going to sit like that. This is what we're going to see from if we're looking down. Okay, so I've got the coolant drained. That made it a lot nicer. I've got this fitting off. There's that T. Just sit like that. Where's that light? And I have, there it is, those double hose clamps. It's capped. It'll be like that temporarily until I go back to winter operation when I marry the loops back together again. Very on and off relationship. So now let's get to putting the bracket and the reservoir in. So this is how it's sat in the car, where I'm tapping with my pinky. That was the pump inlet. Again, this is where my thumb is. That was the heat exchanger, and I was marrying it to the reservoir, the OEM one. So now it's going to sit like this. So I need to move this little fitting onto this one, because that'll be the pump inlet now. And there we go. So it's installed, everything's tightened up. Nice and snug. Now just to fill the system. Alright, so I've got my distilled water and my Redline water wetter super coolant. It says on the back, as far as instructions, here we go. 1 ounce per quart. So 1 quart is almost the same as a liter. So nears makes no difference. We'll use that. So we're going to do 16 capfuls. So I'd done some logs, third gear. There's a lot of third gear logs, a lot of third gear pulls, logging to, as I was changing the small things or tweaking or seeing DA differences, just getting a more comprehensive understanding of how the Maggie responds with different pulleys, just different meth, setups on the controller, nozzles. And so the last third gear pull I'd done before the divorced system actually lined up really well, that after I'd done the divorced, there was the same DA, the same ambient temperature. I started at the same RPMs, obviously finished at the same RPMs at Redline. And that was really, not crucial, but it was really cool to see that the conditions actually lined up really well. well enough in my mind that it actually made like a great, it wasn't a back-to-back comparison time-wise, but conditions-wise it was. So I've got some DataZaps log screenshots here. So the top one is the 50-50 mix, where I was at that minus 35 rating for the coolant. And then bottom is now the divorced, it's distilled water wetter, as I'd shown in the install. So as the top, I'm starting at 32 degrees, and already the bottom with that distilled water mix, I'm starting at 24 degrees, almost 25. So there's an improvement already on the starting temperature. And this is all happening at 1600 foot DA is what I'd seen in this log. And then now we flip it over to the end temperature. On the top with the mix is 60.75, and then on the bottom I'm ending at, with the divorced, 49.5 degrees. And so as we know, it's what you got to compare the deltas now for these two pulls. So for that first run, I got a 28.5 degree delta increase, and then with the mix, and then with the divorced, I got a 24.75 temperature increase. And so you plug those into the efficiency calculation, and I got a 13.16% efficiency increase. And I just think that's pretty cool that the signs lined up, that the comparables are that accurate, and I was able to actually have a measurable improvement with the divorce system and this distilled and water wetter. So that should set me up for some better IETs and some higher timing advance. So we're at near the end of the 2023 season. I've done all the mods now. I've got a new personal best, but fall's coming, DA is gonna drop, and there's the final day at the track. So the question is, did I go faster? So stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.